Back in the early days of the iPhone, there were a lot more options to consider for smartphones than right now. We basically have iOS and Android. But back in the day, you used to have Windows Phone, Android was kind of prominent, but not nearly as much as it is now, and BlackBerry was king. So convincing any of those people in those groups to move over to iPhone, well, that was challenging, especially considering how many drawbacks there were moving to an ecosystem like Apple at the time. However, apps really changed a lot of people's minds. Now, when the first iPhone officially launched, it did not have an app store. It did, however, have apps. That's another video that I'm going to share at another point in time, but for right now, I'm going to focus on the official app store that Apple launched in iPhone OS 2. Now, these apps really took off fast, and they played a big role in convincing people to move away from their BlackBerry or Windows Phone to an iPhone. Now, these apps are going to be shown in no particular order. There's no scientific basis behind these. They're just the apps that I personally noticed growing up with people who had iPhones. These were the apps that got shown to the rest of the world, and a lot of them said, hey, actually, I kind of want that, and it convinced them to buy an iPhone. Now, the first app from this era that should be on the top of anyone's mind is iBeer. This app took advantage of the accelerometer built into the iPhone. This was not common in smartphones at the time, and Apple really wanted to show off what this phone was capable of with that accelerometer, and developers jumped at the opportunity. And by pressing this button, your phone would magically become a glass full of beer. And you could tilt it around and move it. And this was like groundbreaking for the time. No other phone in the market could do this, yet the first iPhone was capable of it. And of course, beyond just slushing it around, you can refreshing. It's just a cheap little party trick is really all it is. And it is kind of funny how the first apps that convinced people that an iPhone might actually be worth it were little tricks like this. Of course, there's more than just beer you can go and flip through, and these were all for sale at the time. You can't buy them now. I wish you could. I would pay for them. But you had a whole lot more options like your wine, your coffee, your water, your soda. Those all came as DLC later on because, of course, why not? Next up on the list is going to be Shazam. Now, Shazam existed on the first generation iPhone. That personally surprised me. I thought it didn't come along until a lot later. It wasn't popular, nor did it really get invested into until later, but yet it did exist. This turned a lot of heads when it came out. Yes, Shazam existed on other phones, but the iPhone, of course, just did it better. And it was more than just some cheap party trick like iBeer. This was a utility, and people jumped on this the second it came out. Now, you'll notice the app looks very different. This is one of the first generations of Shazam. This was running on iPhone OS 2 when it came out, not even 3. This is like the OG. Same sort of concept, though. Click tag now at the top. I don't want you to know my location. No, thank you. It's the same concept as modern Shazam. It would listen for a song, send it off to the cloud, and give you a connection issue because obviously it's not supported. It just straight up crashes. That's great. Jumping back in, you'll notice that it shows you your previous Shazams just like normal. I think, what version are we running? Oh my goodness, 1.8. Now, of course, a lot more got added to Shazam over time, including the lyrics and the social aspect to it. And it's just become so bloated after Apple bought Shazam and integrated it immediately into their iPhone, giving it even more of an edge competitively than back then on the first iPhone when this was available on everything. But this was just groundbreaking. I remember people's brains being shattered by holding your phone up to a speaker in the middle of a crowded restaurant, and it would tell you with precision the exact song that was playing. That did not exist at the time. Now, jumping into number 3, we're going back to the gimmicks just a little bit. This one's half gimmicky and half actually really cool. Star Wars Lightsaber Duel was incredibly popular among more than just the nerdy generation. Everyone loved this back in the day. And it would basically turn your iPhone into a lightsaber. And you got the sound effects and everything, and you could kind of wave it around like you're a total nerd. This is the nerdiest freaking thing that existed. But it was really fun, and there were like other options you could choose besides just Darth Vader. Others were available for purchase, of course. Everything has its DLC, even back then. But this changed the color of your lightsaber to be super, super nerdy. Now, what was really fun is you could actually duel between other people with iPhones. You're starting to kind of already see that walled garden pop up. This didn't work with other Android devices or whatnot, but if your other friend had an iPhone, you could lightsaber duel with them. This phone doesn't support it, which is kind of sad, but just picture connecting with Bluetooth to two different iPhones, and every time you get close to each other, it would make the crashing sound. It's just so geek. It's so nerdy. Oh my God, but I love it. Of course, there's a soundtrack that you can add to. I forgot about the soundtrack. It has built-in Star Wars music, which was really fun, but you could also choose your own soundtrack if you wanted to LARP your way into Star Wars. This towed the line between cheap party trick and something that was actually really cool. And again, a lot of people saw this and were like, wait, if I have an iPhone, I can lightsaber duel with other iPhone users? Yeah, sign me up. Now, it'd be reminisce if I did not show in this video the OG Angry Birds. Angry Birds launched on the first iPhone and just kind of took the world by a storm. Everywhere you went, you saw these little Angry Birds on everyone's phones. And what made it different on the iPhone, especially the first one, was multi-touch. Now, Apple, of course, really wanted to show off their accelerometer. We've already seen that in other gimmicks, but this time they were really emphasizing that multi-touch playability. That was not common, let alone probably didn't exist on any other smartphones at the time, but the iPhone, and you better bet they invested heavily into this. It's just such a classic game. I really do love Angry Birds, and I don't even know if you can get classic Angry Birds on a modern iPhone. I'm going to guess yes, but I would have to check. It would be really fun to play it again. And if not, well, hey, going back in time to the OG iPhone, guess what? You can experience Angry Birds as it was supposed to be played in its OG fashion on a tiny little, well, SD screen. I don't even think it's technically HD. Not bad for a first generation phone. When I went back and played this for the first time, I was actually shocked at how smoothly it ran, considering how old it is and how limited the specs are on this phone, especially when compared to modern phones. I've actually been playing more than I'm willing to admit on this very phone. You can tell I haven't gotten very far. I did have to reset this phone a couple times, but I had gotten far previously, and it's somewhat addicting even now, even though it looks like I'm not doing very well. I'm not really trying. I'm trying to focus on you. I'm talking to you, not them. But anyway, we're getting distracted with Angry Birds. I'm not going to play this game forever. One more quick game that really got people heavily invested in the iPhone, believe it or not, was Paper Toss. This game was everywhere. iPod touches, iPhones, just everywhere you looked, people were playing this game at the airport, at school. But it was just super simple. I mean, this is just so silly. Which, I mean, okay, this is more fun than I remember it being. I haven't played this in a long time. Almost. But anyway, what you're going to notice here is 3D graphics. This was very groundbreaking to have 3D graphics in your pocket in 2007. There were some game consoles that kind of rivaled the graphics that the first iPhone brought to the table. And when the App Store came out, it was just game over. Pun not intended. It really brought mobile gaming to the mainstream, because when people went out to buy phones and they saw these other apps that they already wanted, and they were like, wait, I can play games on this phone too? And not only like Tetris or Bejeweled or these kind of more basic ones, but more heavy games. That really changed a lot of people's minds when it came to switching to phones, and the iPhone, I feel, really benefited from that. Now, there are a lot more games that I could show and feature in this, and I'm going to save that for another video when I explore basically the history of gaming on the original iPhone and what that looked like, and explore the games that really pushed the boundaries of not only this phone, but mobile gaming in general. PSPs at the time, those were big, and the Nintendo DS also really took off at the same time as the iPhone. But again, you didn't have to buy a separate device. You could just buy one phone and have the phone and the game in one. Well, that was pretty enticing. And with the accelerometer and the multi-touch on the first iPhone, just right out of the gate, like you could just see all the ingredients starting to come together for something that really convinced a lot of people of, even though there's a lot of drawbacks to this phone, maybe I should consider it more than I was before. Well, I hope you enjoyed this blast to the past on the very first iPhone and seeing what the apps looked like when they first came out. They were kind of a mess and clunky, as we saw, but they're still really solid. And even Shazam and Angry Birds, those are common staples even today. So this phone was, I would say, ahead of its time. Even when the App Store was still brand new, just seeing the developers jump both feet into this phone really led to the success that I think it ended up becoming. As I've said throughout this video, there will be plenty more coming that covers even more topics about the App Store, pre-App Store, post-App Store. I'm going to talk about it all. So if you're not subscribed to the channel, I really recommend that you do so because it's going to be really fun to dive even further into this.